We're just 2 days away from the trade season opening, and while Jimmy Butler hasn't requested a trade out of Miami, teams are definitely keeping an eye on the situation. The Heat are open to trade discussions, but there's no urgency at the moment. As it stands, Butler has a contract worth $49 million this year, with a $52 million player option for next season, giving the Heat flexibility. In fact, the lack of an extension this offseason or so far this year means Miami isn't feeling any immediate pressure. And from Butler's perspective, he's not exactly in a hurry either, considering his options are still somewhat limited. League sources point to several teams, including the Mavericks, Rockets, Suns, and Warriors, as potential suitors for Butler, though no deal is imminent. The Heat have won 4 straight games, which is helping them stay competitive in the Eastern Conference, and that gives them more time to figure things out. As of now, trade talks have cooled a bit, but with the trade deadline still 2 months away, things could heat up again. Perk, you've been vocal about the Heat potentially moving on from Butler. Where do you think he'd be the best fit? I like the Mavericks, Rockets, Suns, and Warriors for Jimmy, but I have another team in mind, Perk said. What about the Denver Nuggets? Nikola Jokic is having a historic season, and the Nuggets are already a championship contender. Adding Butler could make them even stronger. Bobby Marks, our front office insider, chimed in on how a Jimmy Butler trade to Denver could work. The big trade piece from Denver would likely be Michael Porter Jr., he explained. Since Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon are untouchable, Porter Jr. would be the key asset going to Miami, along with some additional pieces like Zeke Nagy and possibly Dario Saric. Detroit could also get involved to make the money work, absorbing a contract and providing draft assets to help facilitate the deal. Bobby broke it down with a possible trade scenario. Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Nagy to Miami, Jimmy Butler to Denver, and Dario Saric to Detroit, with the Pistons also taking on some cap space. However, it's important to note that Denver is limited in terms of assets, as they don't have a first-round pick to offer. Perk liked the idea. This makes a lot of sense, he said. We've been talking about Denver needing another star to help Jokic, and Jimmy Butler would be perfect as a number 2 or 3 option, while he's not a number 1. For a championship contender, he could still play a huge role alongside Jokic and Murray. And for Miami, they get a talented 6'10" player in Porter, who can stretch the floor and grow within the Heat culture. He's a guy with a high ceiling that could thrive in a bigger role. In other NBA news, the Pelicans are in a tough spot, having lost their 3rd straight game and dropping to 5-21 on the season. They've struggled all year and haven't won consecutive games since the season's first 2 contests. Their current 12th loss in 13 games has them in their worst start in over a decade. With the unofficial trade season opening soon, Bobby Marks will release his all-trade teams next week, giving us a glimpse of the top trade candidates as we head toward the deadline. It's definitely going to be an interesting few months for the NBA. As the trade season heats up, several big names are on the radar, including Dennis Schroeder from the Brooklyn Nets, Zach LaVine from the Bulls, Jimmy Butler from the Heat, and injured stars from the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. Bobby, let's zero in on Ingram and Zion. Where do you see them potentially landing? For Brandon Ingram, who's currently sidelined with an injury, his status as a free agent makes him an intriguing trade target, particularly if a team can acquire his bird rights. One team that makes a lot of sense for Ingram is San Antonio. The Spurs have financial flexibility, draft picks, and the franchise centerpiece in Victor Wembanyama, which makes them a solid destination. With players like Keldon Johnson and Zach Collins as potential trade pieces, plus a host of draft picks, including a first-round pick from Chicago, this could be a compelling offer for New Orleans. Zion Williamson's situation is more complicated due to his current injury and uncertainty around his return. If he gets healthy, his trade value could skyrocket. But right now, the Pelicans' best option might be to hold on to him and wait for him to get back on the court. However, if Zion were to be traded, Bobby, you've previously mentioned that Golden State could be a strong fit for him. The Warriors are always looking for that next star who could elevate their title chances, And Zion, if healthy, could be that game-changing player. Now, Shams, the Pelicans are sitting on a roster with a lot of talent, and with the trade deadline approaching, their phones are likely buzzing. You've got players like Ingram, Zion, Trey Murphy III, CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, and Herb Jones, all valuable assets. But it really starts with Brandon Ingram, as he's in the final year of his deal. When a player is in this situation, teams have to weigh whether to extend him or look to trade him before he walks. As Ingram recovers from his ankle sprain, the next few weeks are crucial for his trade value. Sources tell me the Pelicans have seen an uptick in trade interest, especially for Ingram, and other players like Herb Jones are also drawing attention. While the Pelicans are not currently looking to move Jones, the growing interest in their roster signals that they could make a move before the deadline. The Pelicans are in a position where standing pat isn't really an option. With so much talent on the roster, it's clear they will have to make decisions. Whether it's extending players, making trades, or shaking things up entirely, New Orleans is a team to watch closely. With the trade deadline looming, expect things to get very interesting very quickly.